Greeting, my lords. Jellord here, coming at you with a little bit of talk about solo leveling. So I just finished the 11th episode today, and I'm pretty sure I think it came out yesterday, but I didn't realize until today. I just want to make a brief video addressing a topic I've been thinking about for a hot second. I brought it up a couple times in some of my live streams. I don't really think solo leveling is that great of an anime. I really don't think it's as good as everybody says it is. And recently I was watching somebody else's live stream. I'm not gonna say who because I don't really want to start beef, but I do just want to point out, it's like this person was like gushing about solo leveling, and I just put in the live chat, I was like, solo leveling is mid. And right away the dude got up in arms, called me a tourist, and just immediately dismissed the notion that somebody might not like this anime. I know it's crazy, somebody might not like it. But I just kind of want to defend my position a little bit here. And I'll start out by saying that solo leveling has not done anything original. Nothing about the anime whatsoever is original. There are several animes that it's copied pretty much wholesale, and I'll list a few right now. The first one that is really obvious to me is Sword Art Online. When I heard the title of this anime, before I even saw anything about it, before I saw what the characters looked like, anything, I heard solo leveling, and the first thing I thought about was Sword Art Online. Automatically came to mind. And once I started watching the anime, I realized like it practically starts the same too. What happens at the beginning of Sword Art Online is the main character is solo leveling. And he gets pretty powerful because when he plays online MMOs, he likes to solo the games despite the fact that they're MMOs. So he gets pretty way ahead, and he ends up joining a party who's a lot weaker than him, and he hides his power level. Kind of like who? Jinwoo. Just like Jinwoo, he hides his power level from people. Weird. Okay, what else about Sword Art Online is just like solo leveling? Oh yeah, he loses his whole party right away. Yeah, they're going through the dungeon, and they end up finding a secret room. Weird. Kind of like the second dungeon in the dungeon that they were in at the beginning of solo leveling. Well, in this hidden room, there's a treasure, but they have to clear the monsters in the room. And guess what? The monsters are way stronger than the monsters that they're supposed to be fighting. So everybody dies except for the main character, and he gets a super sweet item in there. And then he goes on, and he's pretty much troubled by these characters' death, which motivates him even more to be a solo leveler. So already, like, we're pretty much wholesale ripped off at this point. Another anime, and let's not even, this is coming up with the whole menu navigation and the system. Another anime that's real obvious is Rising of the Shield Hero. So, in Rising of the Shield Hero, there is a whole system that comes along with him being one of the 4 heroes in their world. And he has to basically figure this system out and how it works. And what do you know? He's supposed to be the weakest one because his weapon is a shield, which isn't really a weapon at all. And like through navigating the menu and understanding how it works is how he ends up getting more powerful. Funny thing is too, is when he defeats enemies, he has to take little parts of them and feed them into his shield. And then from there, he basically unlocks new abilities that kind of parallel the abilities of the enemies that his shield consumes, right? So that's not all that different than Jinwoo absorbing the enemies he beats and being able to summon them afterwards, except in Shield Hero, he summons a different type of shield with a different type of ability, and it changes shape. So it's pretty damn similar here. Now we can jump over, we'll talk about that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Same situation with the menus, same situation with the system. Same situation with him absorbing enemies and being able to use their abilities. He doesn't exactly summon them, but he does summon their abilities and is able to use their abilities. So already right there, very similar situation. So already you can see multiple animes that Solo Leveling is ripping off. I wouldn't say ripping off, but definitely borrowing a lot of the ideas, particularly Sword Art Online. It's like the most egregious one. Now, the second point I want to make about this anime is the characters. The characters are super two-dimensional. Like, besides Jinwoo, which, I mean, there's not that much depth to his character either. Like, he glides along on the whole, the weakest character is actually the strongest character trope, which, me personally, I'm really fucking sick of that trope in anime. It's so done to death. It was like the last time I was excited about that kind of underdog shit was in Naruto. And I mean, it's hardly an underdog thing. Usually with an underdog, they don't become super overpowered. They're weak, but they have like a moment where even though they're weak, they do something awesome, and they use what little ability they have to accomplish something that's much greater than themselves. That's typically what I see in an underdog. But since Naruto, basically the characters just become super powered and godlike, and somehow, because they didn't start that way, they're still an underdog. I don't really get how that trope works. The trope's been kind of like bastardized from what it originally was, but whatever. It's like Naruto pretty much did it the best. And here we are back again with the same trope. Just like in My Hero Academia, where Deku is pretty much the Jesus Christ of quirks at this point. The same deal with Solo Leveling. This dude is just like a Christ figure. Underdog to Jesus is pretty much his character arc, and he achieves that in a handful of episodes. Before the first season is even over, he's already hitting epic levels of strength, surpassed everybody else in the show. So leading from his depth or lack thereof, because I mean, before I move on to the other characters, I'll just cover briefly what the rest of his background is. They hardly talk about his dad, who apparently disappeared into a dungeon or some shit. That's pretty much all we got. His mom is in a magical coma because apparently being exposed to all this magic that's entered the world as a result of these gates has this sleeping beauty effect on certain people. And his sister goes to school. That's the depth of those characters, and that's his whole background. Besides the fact that he's a weakling, which that immediately gets rubbed out. Like, he's immediately not a weakling, like as of like the third or fourth episode. So that part of his background doesn't really matter because it's so minuscule compared to how much of his background involves him being a badass at this point. So you move on to the next set of characters, his allies, who are also extremely generic and two-dimensional. And when I say two-dimensional, I mean exactly that. You get their name and their occupation or character class, basically. Like, it's hard to even remember the characters' names. I mostly remember them by their abilities. It's like the most in-depth character you have is, I guess, the Beast Man, whose name is Yunho, I guess? Which, I mean, these names they're Japanese names, so they're weird enough, they're hard enough to remember. But I cannot summon that dude's name off the top of my head. Bake Yunho. I have it over here because there's no way I'm gonna remember that shit on my own. Anyway, he's like one of the most fleshed out characters besides that ultimate weapon dude that's a firecaster. And then you have Yu Jinho, which is very similar to Jinwoo, but that's his little buddy who's like trying to become a guild master. And that's it. That's the depth of his character besides him being a D-rank hunter. So I want to just real quick to illustrate the lack of depth of these characters. I want to compare the character that just died this episode that was supposed to like really be a stunner for us was the healer guy, the S-rank healer guy, who was in the original Jeju Island raids, and he's best friend with Yunho, the Beast guy. He's best friends with him, and they lost a close friend named Yoon Seok, I guess, if that's how you pronounce it, because I think they only said it like once in the anime. Anyway, I just want to read his background and compare it to a character from another anime that I really like called To Your Eternity. If you haven't checked that one out, awesome anime. Everything about that anime, in my opinion, is superior to Solo Leveling. But I want to compare it to a character, Gugu, who is one of the main characters, Fushi, the main character from To Your Eternity, which are both names, might I add, that are much easier to remember than anybody's names in Solo Leveling. But Gugu is one of Fushi's best friends in To Your Eternity. And I want to compare him to Min. That's what I'm going to call the healer guy because I don't want to pronounce Byung-gyu each time I say his name. So I'm going to call him Min. He's the one who got his head bit off in episode 11 by the super ant. As stupid as that already sounds, even just fucking saying it. So I'm going to read his background off of the wiki for Solo Leveling. And then I'm going to jump over to Your Eternity and I'm going to read Gugu's background. And let's just hear the comparison between the two. Okay, we're going to go personality and history for Min. Byung-gyu was a friendly and compassionate individual with a profound distaste for violence. As a result, he retired early on and was planning on living a normal civilian life as a Korean history teacher before the Korean government announced that they were planning on launching a fourth search and destroy mission on Jeju Island. At the same time, however, Byung-gyu had a strong sense of duty and willingness to participate in the fourth Jeju Island raid, even though he hated fighting and did not enjoy being a hunter. That's his personality. History. Min Byung-gyu, despite being in perfect health, chose to retire from being a hunter. His retirement was deeply tied to the tragic events on Jeju Island, where he took part in all three failed and search and destroy raids. The devastating outcomes, particularly the loss of Yoon Sok, weighed heavily on him. A year prior to the double dungeon incident, Byung-gyu joined the third Jeju Island raid with Yoon Seok and his close friend Baek Yoon-ho. The raid's failure and Yoon Seok's death left Byung-gyu so traumatized that he decided to retire and seek a different path in life until this most recent raid on Jeju Island. So that was his background. Now, let's go to Gugu, who's a character that was in the anime probably maybe one or two episodes more than this guy. But he was in it for several episodes before he died. You know, spoiler alert, before he perished, much like Min. All right, already the personality is twice as much text than Min's personality. So listen to this. Having been betrayed by his brother and his face destroyed at a young age, Gugu was a bitter and jaded boy who struggled with a world that seemed to reject him at every turn, working at Boozman's shop as he had nowhere else to go. At first, he tried to hide his face with a mask, then tried to live without it, but no matter how polite he was or how he pleaded, he was rejected. Gugu loathed his fate and felt incredibly lonely, seeing himself only as a monster. Yet despite his insistence on being a monster, Gugu wanted nothing more than to be accepted. And despite being labeled as one, driven out of a job and used as Boozman's guinea pig, Gugu didn't hold grudges, even going as far as to leave Rain's ring with the then down on his luck Shin in hopes that he would at least live a better life. Now Shin was like his adoptive brother. They were like two homeless kids who pretty much like survived together. And despite the fact that Shin betrayed him later, he still tried to look out for him. And this girl that he saved at one point gave him a really expensive ring. Instead of selling it to help himself out, he left it for Shin, who had turned his back on him. So that's a little extra background to give a little more context. His selfless nature can also be seen when he didn't hesitate to save Rain from a falling log, and through his steadfast loyalty to Fushi, never failing to risk life and limb to help those he cares about. Which, when he saved that girl, that's when his face got crushed and he effectively became a monster. After reconciling with Fushi, Gugu was able to come to terms with his life, finding happiness in his found family at Boozman's shop. He has long let go of any animosity held towards the past, finding that he has gained much more from his struggles. He's much friendlier and a bit of a joker who is quick to laugh and ease the tension, putting on a strong front for Fushi, particularly as the immortal was troubled by feelings of impending loneliness. So Fushi loses a lot of people, and when he ends up finding Gugu, he's already lost like everybody he cares about, including his adoptive mother, who was this really sweet little girl named March, who also passed away, was killed. He couldn't save her, which that was really heartbreaking. And March has an equally deep backstory, even though she only lived for a couple of episodes. So already, as you can see, even without like understanding the scope of the story here, there's so much more to Gugu, and he was only in the anime for a few episodes. Now you compare that to Min, it's not even a comparison. What do we know about Min? I guess he's Korean, wants to be a history teacher, and he's a healer. And now he's fucking dead. That's pretty much it. So just comparing the two anime, you can already see that there's way more depth to this character than there is to Min. There's way more depth, and they're both characters that end up dying. So moving from there, I want to point out that all of the other characters in the show have no depth to them whatsoever. It's just their name and their occupation, and their motivations essentially amount to them just doing their jobs. That's their motivation. It's just to do their jobs, and there's nothing more to them besides that. Going from the characters, and I just wanted to use Min as an example because we're supposed to be like stunned by his death, right? Going on from there, you look at the other characters, they're equally shallow. And then the enemies, there's absolutely nothing to the enemies. If the characters of the show are two-dimensional, the enemies in the show are one-dimensional. They even have, it's like the Demon King, was it? Or Demon Lord? I don't even remember exactly, but that was pretty much the name of the monster he had to beat on the 100th floor of this dungeon to cure his mother. That was all the depth. The thing didn't even talk. And we got like one evil elf that talked at some point, and he was just a shithead, but we didn't know anything else beyond that. I think he had a name. I don't remember it. I don't really give a shit. The only thing that stuck out is Jinwoo wasn't able to absorb him. That was the one time he failed to absorb a character and make him one of his minions. But beyond that, the Demon Lord was the next big baddie that he had to beat. That was pretty much the enemy he had to finish off to accomplish his one big goal, which was to save his mother from her eternal slumber, which he already accomplished this goal. So I don't really know what motivates him at this point. And looking past just this generic ass Demon Lord and then all the other generic ass characters, what's the big antagonist in the show right now? It's ants. The big antagonist of the show is fucking ants, man. That's what we're looking at here. And this last episode, we were apparently supposed to be completely floored when the ant, like the super ant, bit off Min's head, the healer, and killed him. Keep in mind, that generic ass motherfucker, he's dead, but all the other S-rank guys who we're slightly more invested in because they've gotten more screen time, none of them died. They're all good. The smelly chick's fine. Beastman's fine. Cowboy bow and arrow guy, I don't know. He had less development than even Min, but I guess he's alive. And Giant Man, who had a tiny amount of development because he fought when they were all showing off their abilities. But at the end of the day, all these characters are just here to be amazed by Jinwoo, to be amazed by his Christ-like powers. That's it. That's all that they're there for. They're not there for any kind of story or depth or for us to relate to them in any way. They're supposed to be badasses, but they're already so wildly outclassed by the protagonist that it's hard to give a shit about them. They're just extras. They're just cardboard cutouts that are there to make the main character look cool. All of it is so shallow. So shallow, and there's absolutely just no depth to it whatsoever, which which is why I'm like totally baffled why everybody is glazing this anime so hard. Like, it's not that great. It's not great. Like, to cover my points again, everything in it borrowed from another anime that did it better. The characters in it are really uninteresting. Even the main character, even though he has more depth than all the other characters, he's not that interesting either. So I don't think that Solo Leveling is a bad anime. I just really think that a lot of people are praising it too much because it's not breaking new ground. It's not doing anything special. It's a lot of spectacle, and that's about it. And everything is just a setup to make the main character look like a badass. And I don't know, man. That trope is so tired to me. That trope is so tired. So many other anime do it, like, and they do it better. It's like, watch One Punch Man. You know, they do it, even though that dude is like completely OP and outclasses everybody. They do a better job of obscuring his abilities and making him more relatable than Jinwoo ever is. Like, Jinwoo almost seems like a villain, and maybe that's part of the like charm. I mean, shit, he even looks like the main character from Sword Art Online. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think the anime's that great. I don't think it's terrible. I'm not saying it's a bad anime. I'm just saying it's not great. Like the knockers, the enemies from To Your Eternity, like, I'm way more freaked out by that enemy who keeps evolving and stealing Fushi's abilities and shit than I am by some ants. And they already killed the queen, man. The queen's already dead. So they can't reproduce anymore. And then you have the super ant, which, might I point out, doesn't have a name. I guess he talks, but we already had that elf enemy that talked, so it's not like it's like an anomaly. It's not special that the super ant talks. So yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit triggered by the bullshit, you know, like people always get so defensive about the shit that they like, which this is like one of the main points I want to make throughout my channel, and I pointed it out in a lot of my live streams. People get so defensive about the shit that they like. They act like the shit that they like is part of their identity, and they get offended for it as if though you are offending them. And I want everybody to remember the old adage that opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and they all smell like shit, including mine. I'm gonna leave you with that. Like, if anybody ends up watching this video, I hope you disagree with me. Please, go down into the comments. Help me out with a little engagement. Disagree with me. But don't make it argument ad hominem. Don't just come after me and who I am. Engage my argument instead of just shit-talking me and calling me a tourist or some shit, or telling me I don't know anything about anime or I haven't watched shit. Don't just go for argument ad hominem, even though I know I was shit-talking those guys, but they started it. They called me a tourist. I'm gonna say they don't know dick about anime if they're gonna call me a tourist on this one. But anyway, at least I engaged their argument that the anime was good. I have reasons why I don't think it's good, and give me some reasons why you think it's good, why you think I'm wrong, you know. And even if this triggers you a little bit or whatever, please consider leaving a sub for me, because I'm a small channel. I want to get to 50 subs so I can start doing little live streams like this and actually engage with anybody who might be watching. We can debate some of these points and maybe share some anime that's better than Solo Leveling that went under the radar for some people. Yeah, so please leave a like, leave a sub if you enjoyed, or if this pissed you off, whatever, leave a comment, let me know. Let me know why you think it's so good. Let me know if you think I'm off the mark. In any case, this video is long enough. I'm going to cut it off there, but that's going to be Jellord out, my friends. Take it easy.